right, today we are going to install some race louvers into this hood. These are the louvers here we're going to install in about that kind of pattern there. So this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so we'll be starting out by just cleaning the hood, get the bugs and dirt and stuff off here so we don't put any scratches or anything into it. Then we're going to take various measurements, figure out where the radiator is, measure back from there, use a bunch of blue painter's tape on here, and figure out how everything should set. There's been some CFD analysis by some other companies that show where on the ND the low pressure points are underneath, so we'll be using that to help with this layout and get it all laid out, marked up, and cut away. So that's what this video is about. You and I will be learning how to do this at the same time. So here we go. First thing I'm going to do is clean the hood, and then I'll come back and we'll do some measurements and figure out where to go from there. Step one in the process is to figure out where the radiator is, and it's buried under here, but we're going to go about 2 inches back from the radiator and run a string across that point from side to side so that when we can close the hood, we can see where that is and then make a tape line across the top of the hood from there. Got my string measured across here, and for reference here I'm at 2 1/4 from the very tip here and 2 1/4 from the very tip here is what I ended up with, and that puts me pretty much even, pretty close to even with this back panel anyway. It's not exact, but pretty close. So anyway, that's my 2 inches behind the radiator piece, and now I'm going to close the hood and mark those 2 points on either end. I've closed the hood, and then I took a piece of string and taped it and marked it from where my string below the hood went across, taped it down here. That gave me a straight line across. You can't just lay a piece of tape across here because of the compound curves. So once I had that there, then I could take a piece of blue painter's tape and run that across even with the string so that I got a nice straight line across here. I did try initially with the blue painter's tape just to lay it across and then put the string on to see what would happen, and I could see that it was off because of the compound curves. So string first, then take your tape and lay it across there, and you'll get a nice straight edge. Then according to the instructions, for a center louver, you measure from the windshield 20 to 24 inches. That's the optimum place for that one. And 16 to 20 inches, I believe, if I remember right, for the side louvers. So those are just measurements to kind of make sure I'm in the right spot, but I already know, since laying out the templates earlier, just to give me an idea, that that'll work out just fine. So now I move on to the next step, which is placing the templates and getting a good feel for how this is going to be laid out. I need to watch out for these curves here to make sure that I don't intrude on those, and get everything set up and mocked up to where we're going to go. So that's my next step. So I'll be back here in just a second. All right, what I decided to do before I put the templates up here was to find the center of the windshield. So I used the little tip on the Mazda emblem here, put a piece of string running up there, and then measured from both sides. And what I ended up with was 28.5 to right here, to this point right here, coming across the back of this hood over to here. You have to, again, careful because you've got curves and so on. So 28.5 is what I ended up with, going straight across to find the center. And then that gives me a center point that I can then use when I'm laying things out. So that's the first thing I did here. Now I'll put a piece of blue tape across that and then do my layout so that I know I've got everything properly spaced and centered. Here is the layout I'm going with. So I've got my center line running through here, my center one placed on that. We are 2 inches back from the radiator for the center one. And then on the side ones, I wanted to make sure I stay out of this compound, this curve right here where the hood sweeps up as much as possible. So I've pulled those in, stepped them back, looked at the CFD from another company, and they're sitting pretty much exactly where they ought to be sitting. So this right here is what we're going to end up with. So we're pretty straight across the front, and all looks good. So what I need to do now is I wanted to cut these templates with the center still there so that I could visualize what this is going to be, take measurements. Now I'm going to go cut this inside out so that I can draw that out on the hood. I'm going to do that on all these and then use my measurements. I'll put some tape down, use my measurements so that I can just place these right back where they need to go. Draw the line, and oh my God, start cutting. So there we go. I like it. It's going to look pretty damn aggressive. I wanted to show you what I did here. I cut out those templates, the inside out. And I think this is a good step just to make sure nothing gets messed up. I've made sure that the templates I received are the ones for these louvers by flipping them over and then putting the template on there. Just to make sure we're all good. So I think that's a safe step to do, and make sure you've got the right one. I think they even recommend it in their instructions, but if not, make sure you got things cut right and everything matches. So now we're gonna move these over to the hood, get them taped down, mark them up, and then move on from there. I am set to go. Okay, what I will say, what I've learned here is that you get everything positioned, measure from the inside. So I measured from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, and so on. And then I measured from here to there, from here to there, from the inside to there. I did that because, as you can see right here, my outside lines aren't cut perfect because they don't need to be. There's nothing that uses that. It's the inside line that has to be, when you cut it out, cut well. So because my inside line is cut more accurately, I measured from inside to make sure everything was good. I can tell you, when I started, I was measuring this way, and then I started, when I thought I had it all done, I measured inside to inside, and I measured up here, and especially up here, I was off 1/4 inch on this, or 1/8 of an inch up here from there compared to that one. Now, maybe most people that'd be okay, but for me, it was not. So went back, redid this one over here, using all kinds of measurements to make sure everything's equal and perfection. That is what it is. I'm gonna draw my lines on the inside of there, take the hood off, and away we go. So here's what we're gonna end up with right there. You can see that we did end up with a straight shot here. It doesn't look like it because of the curve of the hood, but these are equal from there to there and so on. So it did end up being straight. And I'm out of the compound curves. I took a level I've got here and laid it across there to make sure that I don't have anything weird going on there. You're going to get a little bit of curve because of that, but we can see that I'm good there. I don't have any sort of, if I was up here, see, I'd have a gap, and that would not be good. I'd have to bend my louver to fit. So if I put it right there, I am just dandy. So we're set. Mark it, take it off, cut it. I've got my hood off. Pulled off the center one. You can see I have my mark there. Go ahead and do this one here. There's that one. So now what I'm going to do is the hard part. I'm going to cut these out. They recommend drilling holes in each corner first, so that'll round out that hole. So I'll do that. I'll start there and then use my cutting wheel there and cut these out. Here's phase one. Holes are cut. It recommends cutting 1/8 of an inch outside the lines, and of course I didn't do that. So now I need to enlarge these a little bit, but hey, better safe than sorry. So I've got that part done. And then on the back side, I've got some of the structure cut away, but I need to do a lot more so that we can get these things riveted in. But so far so good. That was the hard part. Now we just keep working it. The backside cut out. They recommend 1 inch and 2 inches, so I'm close. I got a lot of cleanup to do here, but I wanted to show the ND guys. There are these spots of glue where they attach this strut to it. So you'll just cut through it, and then when you go to take that top piece off, just stick a razor blade in there and wiggle it through, and then you'll disconnect those, and then you can come in here later and clean that up just like that. So just wanted to point that out, that there are these spots of glue that you have to deal with on some of this. So when you got it cut and it won't come off, that's the reason. You just gotta get a razor blade and cut those through. I don't recommend just peeling it off because you'll bend your hood on top. So I just gotta file, clean up, so I don't cut my hand off on these things, and just a lot of cleanup here, and then we're ready to go into phase 2, I think. I've got my holes finished off. See here, there we go. I've used a coarse file and a fine file to get these edges smoothed out. I also use the angle grinder to just take off more of this here, and then came in with a file to clean it up. Same on these. Used a file to file these down. Oh, I got a little bit more to do on the back side. Get these all filed down, and then what I'm going to do is take black paint and just touch up this so that it doesn't, you don't see anything here. I could grind that all back, but I'm just not gonna. You get so far, you're just done. So that's where I am. I'm just so far along here now that it's a long day, but yeah, I've yet to drill the holes and rivet it in. So thankfully I'm on the final part of all of this, and can get it cleaned up and get it on the car. So another step complete, and now we just need to do a little bit more cleanup and paint those edges black, and then we'll set these in here and rivet them in. Okay, here's where we are 8 hours later. I've got holes, I've got black paint all the way around. I had put tape on here so when I flip it over I didn't get any scratches in the hood. So far it's been, let's see, I started this at 11 a.m. It's now 7:30 p.m. So I've got 8 hours minus eating, putting dogs out, all that kind of stuff. So who knows, 6-7 hours into this thing. Not a job for the faint of heart, but it's certainly doable at home. All right, I am ready to drill my holes now. What I wanted to show you, I went ahead and put tape under these. First, I got this one, because you've cut the hole in there a little bit bigger, you have some wiggle room in each vent. So to make sure our measurements are back to what they should be, measure from here to here. And then I put tape in, and then I did the same here, taped this angle, made my measurements, taped, made my measurements, because these wiggle, see? So this could be way off from proper measurements. So put some tape down, get the angle correct, take your measurements, then mark your holes. So my holes are marked here. And now I can do my drilling, and I know everything is properly spaced. So I think that was a good step to take to make sure that I didn't mess up the measurements after the fact, because the holes are a little bit bigger. I've got one in. This one is done. Riveted in. So marked the holes, drilled them. Because of the angle when I drilled it, I had to enlarge these two by just wiggling the bit a little bit to get those. So make sure when you put your louvers on, put all the rivets in, make sure they all line up before you start popping them in. So and I also put electrician's tape on the back of this just to give it a better seat when it sits on there, so it's not metal against metal. So a little electrician's tape on the back, and that should help a little bit. So anyway, just got to put electrician's tape on the other two, make sure all the holes line up, and pop in the rivets, and that baby is done. Hallelujah. All right, we are done. So let's start by looking at the back side. So we can see here, rivets in place, cut away. You can see I cut where I thought it might be too close for the rivet. I cut it out. They're little plastic star rivets, so they work well in a confined area like that. So I got those all cleaned up. I got these filed down so they're not super sharp. Won't cut myself on them. And let's see what it looks like on the top side. There we go. So I think they look awesome, aggressive. You can see stuff inside there, so I have to make sure, keep things clean and neat, but I like color inside my engine anyway, so they came out perfect, square, everything's measured, proper distances, the whole bit. So we are done. Oh, and it's 10:30 right now, so it took a full day to do it. There's a lot of things, like when you put in the rivets, I had to drill out some holes because they weren't quite right because of the, when you mark the hole, you might have an angle going on, so had some of that. Had to cut out a little bit more of the back to get the rivets to work. I put electrician's tape on the back of all the louvers, so it's not a metal to metal contact, and I'm happy. I think they look great. I'm anxious to see how they perform in the on the track. If I get better cooling with them, since that's the intent. So that's it. All right, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I would do, knowing what I know now, if I had to do it again. First, I would have covered the hood totally in blue tape, top to bottom, just to get rid of any fear of scratching it. You're turning it over a lot. You've got a lot of metal shavings, grinding, powder. I mean, there's just crap everywhere when you're doing this. So I wished I would have covered the whole hood with tape. I didn't get any major issues, but I did get a little bit that will buff out. But if I would have taped the whole hood, that wouldn't have been a problem. The other thing is I wished I would have not been so conservative on cutting. That if I had cut these out a little bit bigger, if I cut the holes out just a tad bigger, maybe 1/8 of an inch bigger, that would have saved me some time. But I was being conservative, so I cut just beyond the line a little bit. They say 1/8 of an inch, and I maybe cut a 1/16 of an inch beyond that. Should have cut at least 1/8, maybe 3/16 off the inside area. And then cut these. As you can see, I had to notch these out a little bit in places just because I didn't cut big enough. So I wished I would have cut a little bit bigger. That would have saved me quite a bit of time in having to redo things afterwards. Other than those two things, I'm pretty content with how it came out. It took a long time. It was a measure 48 times, and in my case, cut 3 or 4. But thankfully, I never cut too big. I could always I ground out some more to make it look better, fit better, you know, those kinds of things. So I never cut larger than it had to be. But I just wished I would have cut a little bit more to start out with. So overall, I'm really pleased with the results. Love how it came out. I think they look awesome, and I think they're going to perform awesome as well. So yeah, I'm really happy. The other thing I wanted to cover a little bit was the tools that I used. I used an angle grinder I got off Amazon. I went through 4 blades on this. That did the big work. Then I also used a Dremel with a cutting wheel to do the corners where you just can't use the angle grinder without going 1/4 to 1/2 inch past where you want to cut to get those corners to come out nice. And you just got some tight spots under the hood with all the wavy cross bracing and such. So the Dremel helped with those things. So that was primarily the tools. The other thing to know is, oh my God, the dust. Everything in your garage is going to be coated in dust. I have a double garage. I probably swept up 1/2 cup of dust, of metal dust. So you get a lot doing this. Not a whole lot you can do about that, but yeah, just know that you get a lot. Keep your car out of the garage while you do the work. That's what I did, so I didn't have to clean the car up, just swept the floor up. So now I'm just picking up, cleaning up, getting done, but that's it. Hope you get something out of this and helps you get through any hood louver installation you do. If you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the comments, and I always get back to that stuff. So thanks guys, good luck with your project.